It is so awesome to be with you here on a Monday morning. Yesterday we celebrated the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And I was thinking about what to talk about for this week. And I thought it'd be awesome to go back to something that we discussed a few months ago in our church. Yesterday, what we celebrated was not just a singular event. The death and resurrection of Jesus didn't just bring salvation in one moment. It's not just the moment that we celebrate. The death and resurrection of Jesus gave us something that is lasting. It was a means to an end. The salvation part was not the only purpose. That wasn't the end of God's plan. That was only the door through which God's plan could be fulfilled in our life. It enables us to have a relationship with God that is growing and thriving every single day, where we are being renewed, where our life has purpose and we're guided by the Holy Spirit. All of that we gained through this amazing holiday and through the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. Now, what I want to talk about today is the portrait of a Christian. I thought it would be really awesome to talk about it again because right now, first of all, circumstances have changed and it kind of puts a different spin on it. And number two, because we celebrated the death and resurrection of Christ, today we can talk about, okay, what do we do with that? It's a reminder of what we do and why Jesus did all of that for us. And so when we talk about the portrait of a Christian, what we're talking about is a portrait of a healthy, growing, thriving Christian looks like. And in this portrait, there are 4 parts, and I would like for you to write these down. You can go back afterwards, write them down, think about it, meditate on it. But here are the 4 parts. The first part of being a healthy Christian is growing in your relationship with God. Growing in your relationship with God has to do with finding out who He is spending time in His Word, getting to know His heart, allowing His Spirit to reveal His heart to you, and then becoming more like Christ. That's what being a Christian is all about. So the first part is growing in your relationship with Christ. The second part is growing in your purpose with God. It is so awesome to revisit this question because right now things have changed. A lot of things that we tie our purpose in God to, a lot of those things have been paused. For most of us, things have changed to such a drastic degree that things that we tie into our purpose with God, like business or maybe your job, maybe right now that's shifted. But God's purpose hasn't stopped. God has a purpose. And so growing in that purpose, even now, it kind of forces us to go back into the basics. What are the basics of God's purpose in our life before anything? Remove our jobs. Remove the things that we identify with. What are those purposes? So growing in your purpose with God. Number 3, it's growing in fellowship. Once again, things have changed so differently. We are fellowshipping in a whole different way. But how can you grow right now? That is part of the purpose that God has for us. How do you grow in fellowship when you cannot physically see people? We have technology today that people in the Bible times didn't have. So it enables us to be able to actually continue fellowshipping in a different type of way. What are you doing to grow in that right now? Are you striving to grow that aspect of your faith? That's a necessary part. And the last one is growing in evangelism, personal evangelism. Once again, today is a new day. We live in a different time that allows us to discuss this in a different way. Right now, people are open to it. You know, people are sharing videos of neighbors that are just playing worship music outside. Some of my cousins shared that from yesterday, that literally somebody just came out and started playing a worship song on their guitar and singing into a microphone. A neighbor who's never done that yet on the outside. So there are new ways to evangelize. What are you doing to grow in that? And so when we talk about the portrait of a healthy, growing Christian, the 4 parts are growing in your relationship with God, growing in your purpose, growing in your community with other believers, and growing in personal evangelism. If you focus on growing in all of those, you are a healthy, growing Christian. Now, one last point before we're done here. I wanted to just throw this moment out to you. You are only as strong as your weakest point. You cannot just revel in your strengths and ignore your weaknesses. All 4 of them, we have natural strengths and weaknesses, some that we're better at, some that we're worse at. It's about growing in our weakest ones. And so I just want to encourage you, grow, put effort into it. And the best way to start is after this is over, write down the 4 parts and then think about in your life, what is that purpose? How are you growing in your relationship with God? How are you growing in evangelism? Write them down practically and meditate upon it with prayer and ask God to guide you along the way. God bless you. We love you. See you guys tomorrow.